everybody. Welcome to Building a Career That Matters. We're continuing our discussion on Roadblock 2020, dealing with long-term disruption. Last time around, we started talking about the different elements in building a online sort of practice, or migrating things to an online practice, and doing our best to expand our products and services to put more of an emphasis on residual income or passive income sorts of opportunities we may have. And last time around, we finished talking about being a social media influencer and what that meant, what you would need, etc. And so let me just kind of recap that, then we'll get into the follow-up slides. Okay, so as a social media influencer, you are establishing yourself as a presence, as an authority, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, wherever you happen to be putting yourself, that's where you would be. And you can make some money doing that. In fact, if you wanted to, you don't need to worry about any of these other things we're talking about. If you really want to put the energy into establishing yourself as a social media influencer, that may be all you need to do to bring you the money you're looking for, and then some. Just know that there is a lot of work involved in becoming a social media influencer. You would probably have to create a video at least a couple of times a week. And if you wanted to do it on Instagram or something like that, you'd probably have to do multiple things per day. And you'd have to do this over a very long period of time in order to develop the following, get yourself to the place of being monetized, and then begin to pull in whatever those revenues happen to be. So if any of you that are on the call want to go, yep, that's for me, you just feel free to say so. We can spend more time on it. And those that are listening to the recording, you can always reach out if you'd like to really talk about focusing on becoming this level of an online celebrity, if you will. Okay, I'm going to assume though that most of you are more in the same camp that we're in, which is, well, I definitely want to be putting some videos up there, and I might as well put them in a place people can find them. And if someday it adds up to being monetized, so much the better. But this is not going to be my life's goal, is not to become a social media influencer. Am I right? I will imagine that you guys, I'm looking at who's on the call, so. No. All right, so let's move on to the second one. And that is creating a membership community. Now, people who have even started their own YouTube channels will often create a very basic membership community, and that's where things like Patreon come into play. I'll tell you more about that in just a second. But obviously, in order to have a membership community, you need to have a website. See, if you were only going to be doing social media influencer, you were going to be a YouTube personality, that's all you need. You just need YouTube. You could do other things, but you don't have to do that. If you're going to have a membership community, you're probably going to want to have your own website where you can introduce people to yourself and your community and all the good things that go along with that. Luckily, there are several platforms that are out there that kind of become a combination website and membership community. And if you find one of those that you like, then, great, job's done. And so I'll tell you about a few of those. There are dozens upon dozens of them, but Patreon is probably the one that is going to be most familiar to people who frequent YouTube. So Patreon is a really interesting platform. It started several years ago now, but Patreon harkens back to the days of yore where there were kings and queens and courts, and everyone wanted to have good music and minstrels to play the music, and art and paintings and all that sort of stuff. Well, in order to make it make life possible for those artists and musicians, very often they would reach out to members of the aristocracy to become their patrons. You become a patron of the arts. And basically you would give them a certain amount of money every single month so that they could focus on their art form. Well, Patreon basically decided to take that into modern times. And so if you go and visit anyone's Patreon website, you would see that they offer several different tiers of support that you can pledge to, ranging usually anywhere from $1, and then they'll have a $3, a $5. It's rather nominal sorts of things, but the ones that are having fun can also get up there and have $50, $100, $500 sorts of tiers. And these are things that Patreon on your behalf would automatically bill that person for every single month. Patreon is going to keep its percentage that ranges somewhere between 6% and 12%, depending on the level of services Patreon is providing you. So you kind of choose your level of support from Patreon. And they also handle all the banking transactions. So, and they pass on those banking fees to you. So in addition to that 6, 8, 12%, you're also going to be charged for whatever the banking fees happen to be, which is usually another 3, 4%, maybe more. So anyway, it adds up. That being said, they take a whole lot of administrative burdens off of you. We'll be talking about downsides in just a short while. If you already have an existing website, there are a lot of these member community software packages, apps that have been designed specifically to merge with whatever your website happens to be. So for example, all of our websites are fundamentally WordPress websites. And then we use like a Divi plugin in order to do the design part of our websites. But there's a plugin called MemberPress, and you just, get MemberPress and it gets added to your dashboard inside of WordPress, and you're good to go. MemberPress has been around for a good long while. It has many, many competitors. Rather than me say that over and over again today, just know that if there's one, there's a dozen, or if not multiple dozen alternatives that are out there. Each have their own upside and downside. Personally, we started off with Patreon, but we encountered a couple of problems with Patreon. The biggest one is that when you start to describe the different tiers of benefits that your supporters, your patrons will receive, you can't control the order of them. So from a design perspective, it was rather lacking. The other thing that we started to raise an eyebrow about, and I'll just throw this to you guys as a question. I know Patreon's been around for a while, but do you really want to trust any other entity when it comes to completely handling your money? So Patreon handles all the billing. Patreon holds all the dollars, and then Patreon will pay you when you request payment from them. So if it's all working perfectly, well, then it's all working perfectly and no one has anything to worry about. But what happens if something happens to Patreon or they get bought up by somebody else and suddenly you're getting these patron dollars, but you don't really know who they're coming from. You don't have those people's contact information necessarily. There is kind of a utility you can use to get some of the information. But bottom line is, you couldn't just transfer the billings from Patreon's platform to another platform. So anybody comfortable letting somebody else completely control access to your money? We thought no. So we started looking at other things, and MemberPress was the obvious one for us to look at. MemberPress charges an annual fee. The annual fee right now is, I believe it's about $2.99, and that gives you all the capabilities you want. There is a less expensive, if you even want to call it $299 a year expensive, but a less expensive option, but it only allows payment through certain platforms. And because we do rather high-end payment processing, we need to make sure that we could continue to use authorize.net. And when it came to MemberPress, we had to choose the level that supported authorize.net. That just happens to be the one that is currently $2.99. So I'm bringing that to your attention just to say, if you are already in the habit of accepting credit cards from your clients for any reason, and you wanted to move into a membership website, don't complicate your life. Make sure you're choosing a platform and a level of support inside of that platform that will allow you to continue business as usual as far as your shopping cart goes, or as far as the way you handle your billings goes. And that leads us now to where we're currently at, and that is we're currently optimistically migrating to Groove. So Groove is a company that is coming up with all sorts of individual apps that cover everything that someone who's trying to operate a virtual business would ever need. And so it includes things like page design and CRM and sales funnels and video hosting, membership programs, the delivery of training programs online, pretty much everything any of you could ever possibly want. Groove is putting together. And I would say right now they are for the most part in beta. It all looks very good. They seem to have a great deal of support, a great deal going on. And Linda will chat over to everyone a link to Groove if you'd like to check it out to see what's going on. And so I think we're going to end up at Groove, but if you guys want to just stick with something that fits in with what we've already got, you can look at MemberPress and some other options there as well. So yes.
Does Groove take money and process money? How do they handle that?
Well, technically they don't.
No, wait a minute.
No. Let me finish what I was saying there.
Okay.
Technically, they don't. It's very similar to you having your own shopping cart. You have your own relationship with the bank, and the funds are handled the same way that you would be handling them currently. Currently, yes, they have their own shopping cart, but the actual dollars themselves. And now, Linda, if you want to chime in and tell me I'm wrong, but
No,
they don't collect the dollars and pay you.
Oh, I didn't understand that's what she was asking. No, they
Right.
don't collect the dollars.
No.
They just provide the checkout, and the checkout goes through whichever you choose. We have authorized.net who
Yep.
puts it in the bank.
Yeah, so they have a shopping cart, but once you start getting into actual money, that's a relationship you establish with your bank or already have established with your bank too. So you have your own merchant account and it goes through a clearinghouse. We use authorized.net, and it all ends up immediately being deposited into your bank account. So now that's different than Patreon. Patreon handles all the billing. Patreon holds all the money. And then when you request payment, Patreon will pay you. So just be very aware as you start to look at these different membership community platforms you might consider that you always get the question answered. Who's touching my money? Who's handling my money? Do I have full access to all of their billable information, et cetera? So it's an issue that you definitely want to keep aware. If it's MemberPress, no problem. MemberPress functions very much like Groove does. In fact, most of the solutions we have stumbled across and looked into function the same way that we've grown accustomed to with Infusionsoft. And by the way, the only reason why we're leaving Infusionsoft is because it's become absurdly expensive as we were one of their very earliest adopters. And so we got grandfathered in at a real bargain. But Infusionsoft has not really evolved all that much into the range of things that it offers. And it's becoming very expensive for people to use.
Well, what's happened with Infusionsoft is they have a great foundational base of a lot of the things that we needed about 10 years ago. But as they grew, they didn't add their own like member site or their own webinar possibilities or all these new things that have come along. But what you do if you are paying for Infusionsoft is you then have to go and pay for all these other pieces and bring them into Infusionsoft. So that's how they handled it, where Groove is creating all of their own pieces. So it's one congruent
family of
piece
apps.
of software,
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, they now are very cost effective and currently have, because you would be joining them like I kind of did with Infusionsoft at the very beginning, they have a special thing that they're doing where if you pay for, I think it's $1,400, they never charge you again because you're starting with them at the beginning. So there's no yearly charge like there is with Infusionsoft. I think it's 2,400. There's no monthly charge or anything like that.
So definitely something we would encourage you guys to look into if it's going to fit with your business. And as I talked a little bit more about some of the other elements of moving into an online presence, it all just becomes a little bit more integrated and benefits you to be more integrated. But as far as membership communities go, there are a lot of options available to you. Just make sure that you don't let other people handle your money or hold your money for you. Now, in order to have a membership community, one of the most important pieces of the puzzle is creating your tiers. So you could just have one membership package and say, that's my whole membership community. It's one package, in which case you honestly don't need to introduce the complexities of a membership application platform. If everyone's going to be the same, you can do that in a far more direct way than what the membership platforms are designed to allow. So by definition, you need to have 2 tiers or more, or don't bother with one of these platforms. So now, as far as how many tiers you want, you can have as many as you want, and I'll show you our tier system by the time we're done today, but we ended up with 8 tiers. You can have as many as you want, and you can price them however you want. But what you have to do is figure out what it is you're going to provide at each level. And you need to understand that as tiers are built, if you have tier 2, everything that you included in tier 1 automatically comes with tier 2. If you've got tier 8, it needs to include everything that came with tiers 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, some platforms allow you to work around that, but the thing is that now your tiers are no longer tiers. They really are just separate products that include certain things. And so you may not need a membership community platform in order to deliver on those different combinations of things that someone may receive. Okay, but anyway, tiers. We'll talk about tiers in grand detail. That's why I said you need to get together all of your intellectual property, because you may say, well, I've got a bunch of articles, but no one's going to buy those. Well, they may very well be a very nice thing to include with your tiers. And so all that intellectual property can end up being a very valuable thing in your big layout. Now that you move on to pricing, then what is the price point you're going to attach to each one of these tiers? From everything that we've read and watched online, and this adds up to dozens, if not hundreds of hours of videos being watched, and that you have to have a free tier. So a tier that anybody can join, that does not require them to provide you with any kind of credit card information or anything like that. It needs to be an effortless decision for someone to become your tier 1 member. And then once they're the tier 1 member, now you have a way to get in contact with them. You can send them updates. I mean, you're giving them whatever you said tier 1 gets. And tier 1 no doubt gets early alerts to X is happening, and they get included in a little newsletter, or they get access to this, that, and the other thing. And so you got reasons for contacting people and letting them know what's being put up, this month, or whatever the frequency happens to be. So you have lots of opportunity to say, if you'd like to get more, well, then please move up to the next level of our membership community. And tier 2 could be $1 a month, or it could be $2 a month, whatever it happens to be. I did want to bring one thing very important to your attention around the pricing of tiers. And that is, depending on which of the credit card deals you've got as far as your merchant account goes, you may be charged, in addition to a percentage of the transaction, you may also be charged a set transaction fee. Now, you may have never paid any attention to that set transaction fee because what you're billing people is in the hundreds or dollars, $1,000, whatever it is. So you go, whatever. But that fee could be 25 cents, 30 cents, 40 cents, just because there's a transaction. So if you've got a $1 tier, that means every single month you are automatically losing whatever that transaction fee was, plus whatever the banking fees happen to be. So it's not 3% or 4%. No, it's 33 or 38 or 43%. So if you're going, when we look at these low cost tiers, make sure you factor in if your merchant account deal has a per transaction fee. So for example, we take PayPal. I do a lot of stuff on eBay. And so PayPal charges us a 30-cent transaction fee no matter what the cost is of the item. So again, if it's a big ticket item, who cares? Have the 30 cents. But if it's $1, I think the 30 cents matters. So, pardon me. Now, I say that only to say maybe you don't want to have a dollar product. Maybe you want to have a $2 product as your first paid level or tier. So again, you got to give some thoughts to pricing. Now, the ideal or people, when they look at membership communities, get very excited when they look at the math, because they go, oh my goodness, if I have 1,000 members and each member is paying me $2 a month, that's an extra 2 grand. That'd be sweet. If it's $5, hey, that's an extra 5 grand, $10. Anybody will pay $10 a month to get a nice set of benefits. How wonderful. That's $10,000 a month. That's really absolutely true. That's the goal. However, there's a downside. And so let's go over some of the upsides and downsides. By the way, if you guys have any questions, you're always welcome to just unmute and ask away or type something over to me. Linda has chatted over to everybody. I think everyone right now is a panelist. So Linda, you send it to panelists. You might want to send it to panelists and attendees. But feel free, chat it over or unmute yourself, ask a question. I'm more than happy to share with you anything that we've learned. Okay, so anyway, there's some upsides and some downsides. Here's the biggest upside to a membership community. It's very easy to get started. You can start off with just 1 or 2 tiers, give them a few little things, and you're good to go. But the downside is that every month you have to continue to provide something of value if you expect them to continue to pay them. If you expect them to continue to pay you, you've got to make sure that they're always getting value that makes whatever that monthly charge is a bargain. Now, when these kinds of membership sorts of things first got started, no one gave a second thought to it, but more and more, companies of all varieties are moving into this monthly payment for services kind of model. So for example, right now, when it comes to our software, Microsoft Office, we pay a monthly fee to do that. When I look at all of our Adobe suite for doing Photoshop and Illustrator and video production, there's a monthly fee associated with that. Now add to that Netflix and CBS All Access, and you just name, add it onto that, and then go. Linda just joined this amazing program she'll tell you about on a different call, but this thing called Dose, which is all about managing your neurotransmitters through motion and meditation. It's really very interesting, but it's a monthly sort of a fee. And so when people had one recurring charge, they didn't really think all that much about it. But now, as they're starting to recognize more and more and more things are moving into a recurring billing model, they start to perhaps pause and go like, do I want to add that? Do I really want to do that? And so it's interesting that they're noticing now that sometimes people would just be happier to pay for something once and get whatever it is they were looking for than to get into any kind of a recurring billing sort of model. So interesting, like food packages. How many of you guys have subscribed to any of those food delivery sorts of services? Or you go and you buy something on Amazon and they go, do you want to go on an auto ship? All of these things are variations on these kind of membership sort of communities, if you will, or membership deals they've got going on. So one of the downsides is that you have to make sure that you've got sufficient intellectual property to give to your subscribers every single month so they continue to subscribe. And so I'm going to show you what ours includes so you guys get some ideas. But I want to give you the kind of rule that governs successful membership communities. And that is people enroll for the content, but they renew for the community. So got to bask in that for just a moment. They'll sign up to get the content. But if you want them to continue to pay that little monthly fee, what as nominal as it may be, it's about putting emphasis on the community aspect of things. And that community has to keep you as a central element of that community. Otherwise, they could join any other community. So if you want them to join your community, then you got to be a central element in that community. And so you want to make sure that your tiers are not just things that are, products you could send somebody, files they can download. Make sure there's something that's an opportunity for them to have a live, interactive kind of an experience with you. And maybe that's just a once a month little drop-in Zoom meeting, but it needs to be something for there to be a sense of community. Some of the membership platforms allow you to create chat rooms or community bulletin board sorts of things. We can tell you in our experience that until your membership is in the thousands of people, you don't have enough participants to have any sort of meaningful community bulletin board chat sort of system work. And again, you guys can unmute. We can chat about this if you've had a different experience, but you need a whole mess of people in order to get enough participation in those sorts of things for it to feel worthwhile, substantial, meaningful, valuable, whatever word you want to put into that. So we would not encourage you to say, well, the community part of it is that they can all go to our one Reddit sort of thing, or they can participate in our Discord kind of a group. Well, that's fine. You can say that's included, but until there's adequate membership levels, until that community is sufficiently large, nothing's going to be happening there. And that does not cast a very bright light on what it is that you are offering and how interesting people find it all. Okay, so anyway, so you got to make sure you're doing something on a monthly basis. And one of the things that you are doing needs to be some sort of live community-centric sort of participation sort of a thing. Okay, when Linda and I first started our community, I don't know how many of you have been around as long, but you guys remember there was a period of time that we were offering 5 webinars every single week. Every single day there was a webinar that we would invite people to. And we'll probably start doing that again, as you'll see as we start looking at the tiers. I don't mind that at all. So you decide how frequently you want to do something, and your studies will, or your results will tell you whether or not you need to do something more frequently. Okay, questions, comments about a membership community? Thoughts? Y'all being very quiet today. All right. Feel free to chime in if you have to. Otherwise, let's move on to the next thing, and that's on-demand training. Now, on-demand training platforms sometimes get very much confused with membership platforms because in some ways they look similar, but they are actually very different sorts of things. And if there are dozens of membership platforms to choose from, there are hundreds of on-demand training platforms to choose from. So I want you all to kind of recognize that if you aren't careful, you can end up going down a very dangerous rabbit hole and end up spending vast amounts of time and energy just looking at all these different platforms and trying to compare and contrast them. So we're going to do our best to kind of save you a little bit of trouble there. But when it comes to on-demand training, obviously you're going to need to have a website somewhere. You're going to have to explain what your courses are all about, what the benefits are, who should take it, all those one-pager kinds of things that we've always had to put together when we're selling training programs. It's still part of all this. So some of these platforms include a website element to it. But let me tell you a little bit about some of the many platforms that are out there, because you got to choose which philosophy of platform most readily matches your own. So some of the platforms work this way. They are a university. They have a catalog of programs that people can take, and they actively market to their subscriber base. And they may or may not offer you ways to get your program featured in their marketing. No doubt there's going to be a charge if you're going to be featured as one of their people. But nevertheless, someone could go to their university and they could do a search for a particular topic, and your course could pop up as one of the options that are available. Now, there are at least two different varieties of those kinds of universities. There are universities where you pay for each program, in which case when they came to the catalog and found your course, they would find whatever price you have attached to that course, and then they would decide to enroll or whatever the case may be. The other kind of university is one where the students, those who have enrolled, pay a flat rate monthly for unlimited access to the entire catalog. In which case, the cost of your program doesn't mean anything. And you're going to receive a fractional payout of the total amount of, I'll say this, tuition dollars collected by that university during that particular month. It gets very complicated, not very easy to predict how much you're going to get and all that. But nevertheless, those are the two big models when it comes to those kinds of university sorts of settings. And we have any thoughts, comments about just the university kind of model? And by the way, some of them are actual universities. So
Yeah, in the university model, so even if nobody took your course, would you still get a fractional?
no, it's all based on the number of minutes that students in the entire university spent watching your stuff compared to the total number of minutes, the grand total of minutes. That's your fraction. So if they watched none, you would get nothing. But if they watch 10 minutes, well, then who knows what fraction that ends up being. Depends on the amount of traffic that they had that particular month, how much they're going to share. And by the way, they don't share 100% of the tuition that was collected. A certain percentage of that collected tuition is put into a pool for distribution among everyone else. The ones that pay by course, some of them, and by the way, things are always changing. That's why I'm not giving you specific names of them, but I'm sure you guys have seen Udemy and all of these other ones. That some of them say, well, you can put your course up here and you can put a price on it, but your price can never be higher than X. And so this was a big problem because there were people who went through the time and trouble of building out a course, put it up on some of these initial platforms that were offered to the community. And their courses were $9.97, $29.97, in the thousands of dollars. Well, then they came along and said, nope, nothing can be more than 59 bucks. So, and I'm talking about, you know how there's always those people that are hawking their make a fortune in real estate deals. So flipping houses or how to play this in the stock market. And they usually charge super high premium prices for those courses. And they were successful enough. They got enough people to do that they thought, oh, look, here's a platform. I can just put it out there. Now anybody and everybody can get to it. Well, what do you think happens to your income stream when suddenly this platform comes along and says, no, sorry, 59 bucks is the most you can do it. And they might have modified. I'm sure they got lots of pushback. And so maybe you can go up to 199, but the thousands of dollars for coursework is no longer possible. So what these people had to do is they would put a mini course up on the university model platforms for whatever price they could get for it or whatever deal they were being offered, but that would lead you to enrolling in their bigger course, which is not on that university platform, but might actually be being delivered in a do-it-yourself kind of a platform, because you can always build this out on your own if you want. So that's that. Well, there's plenty of other platforms where you just say, nope, I'm going to create a course, and all the money is going to come through me. I handle all the billing back the same way the membership group did, etc. So, and I'll produce my own catalog, and it's just me, nobody else. I'm just marketing my own kind of stuff. And you can do that. And there are a lot of platforms that will enable you to do that easily. Those platforms tend to charge either a monthly or an annual fee. Well, we were quite surprised to find out that some of these platforms, the one I'm showing you here is LearnDash is the first one, and this one is one that easily integrates in with WordPress. In fact, often people with a WordPress website will use both MemberPress and LearnDash. For reasons I'll get into in just a second. But LearnDash charges you an annual fee, and I think the annual fee is right around $200. And for that, you can put up unlimited number of different programs. You can have unlimited students and all that kind of thing. It's a really, really sweet deal. Well, there was another one called, what was it called? Kajabi? Kajabi, I think is what it is. Kajabi is like $1,500 per month. So some of these platforms are really designed for corporations, for learning institutions, school systems, universities, where paying that kind of money is fine. Who cares? It's nominal, in their overall budget of things. But those platforms are not intended for anyone who's on one of our calls. We need something that's a little bit more reasonable in that. Okay, so point is, there's lots of different platforms that offer lots of different deals. And you may very well say, well, if it doesn't cost me anything to put something up on one of these university sites, I might as well. But I can't put my bigger ticket courses up there. I got to put them someplace where I have more control, because, oh, by the way, those university platforms generally keep 50% of the revenue if they are allowing you to charge whatever it is you want to charge for that. So it's a big price to that. So the thing about LearnDash is that it integrates with very easily with WordPress websites. It's like I said, a couple of $100 a year, and Groove is also they're kind of saying that their on-demand training module and their membership organization model are one and the same. And this is where I'm starting to get a couple of question marks. So I'll share those with you. So how many of you have coursework where people would like to receive a certificate at the completion of the course? Pretty much that's the case for every one of my courses. Well, LearnDash does that automatically. Groove has not made any mention of that yet. Groove will allow you to display how far through the coursework someone has gotten. So based on the total number of videos or lessons or whatever, it'll say you're 40% done, you're 60% done, etc. And that's all great, but it will not tell you how many of your students are how far along in something. It doesn't take attendance. It isn't something that's really going to do that. And by the way, there's a lot of on-demand learning platforms that don't do this. So my thought was like, okay, I got to be able to take attendance. I need to be able to do integrated quizzes and things like that. If we want to do something for the ICF and say, yeah, I know for certain these people did the asynchronous learning because we had them take a test, or we want to do something that actually qualifies as certification and there needs to be a comprehensive exam at the end of it, you need to make sure that whatever platform you choose has robust testing capabilities. And so what we found is that LearnDash includes all of those things. but the MemberPress, which would be the membership side of things, includes none of them because they don't do courses. MemberPress, you could do a little course. You could throw some videos up into MemberPress as long as you want, but it doesn't meet the qualifications of being a course. And so I'm going to get back to all of you guys. I know a great many of you on this call are educators. You have your PhDs. You have done that kind of academic sorts of training. You also do training for corporations and other businesses. I got to ask you, how seriously do you want to take whatever on-demand training you're offering? If it's just an enrichment program, fine, throw it into one of those university models. And if you make some money, you make some money. That's really great. Or if it's just a one video standalone little learning experience, well, you could just throw that up as a YouTube video, or you could just put that on one of your tiers in a membership website. But if you actually want to be offering courses, then you need to do something to make sure that the platform is supporting you in keeping track of where people are in the course, and is doing something to keep them engaged in the course. And that gets to my next little thing I want to talk about for on-demand training. And if you guys will step into the confessional, I think that you'll all find this very eye-opening. How many of you have ever started doing an online training course only to abandon it before you finished it? Yeah.
You mean personally?
Personally, yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course, of course. And so this is a big deal. Jane just shared to everybody there. She's taking some courses on Thinkific, and it works great for tracking course progress for certification. That's fantastic. I don't know what Thinkific's deal is with the originator, the creator of the content. So that's one well worth looking into. But again, you guys just need to go into it knowing, like, wait, I don't want to start building out all kinds of programs on all sorts of platforms and then realize there's no quiz capabilities, or realize there's no way to check attendance. There's no way to put a time limit into how long you've got to finish a particular module. There's no opportunity to do what some would call like a trickle method of sending information out. So they'll go like, you can sign up, get started, do the whole thing in your own pace. You think that's an advantage? Statistically, people are less likely to complete that program than if you do it as a trickle, where you say, now that you've signed up, you're going to be getting a lesson every single week, and you need to complete that lesson in order to get the next lesson. Or you're offering some kind of feedback to them. So they know where they're at in the whole system of things. And that's where we can start talking about gamification. How do you make sure people come back and do it? So I'm going to give you an example of this. Lynn and I are in a French club, so we're always trying to expand our French capabilities. And so one of the things we signed up for was Duolingo. Duolingo is an online language learning platform, very well established, been around for a very long time, very popular, millions of users. So they got their act together. Well, it's interesting that as you start to take the lessons, you could just take the lessons. They could have just slapped the lessons up and go, here's lessons 1 through 1000, and have at it. No, every time you complete a lesson, you earn something called a lingot. Lingots don't seem to be worth anything, but you accumulate them. And for whatever reason, accumulating those lingots stimulates you to make sure you don't skip a day. Or you have these streaks. How many days of continuous training have you experienced? And so you got this streak counter. The streak doesn't mean anything. It doesn't buy you anything, but you've got this streak counter that's constantly running. You have a thing at the beginning that says, how many points of language learning do you want to commit to every single day? So for you to get credit for doing it for a day, you have to have done 20 units of whatever the training happens to be. So they've got all these things that are involved. Oh, and by the way, every week you're in a competition with 30, 40 other learners. And if you finish in the top 10, as far as the number of points you earned that week, you now advance from the Silver League to the Gold League to the Emerald League to the whatever it happens to be. And so none of those things actually mean anything. But I've just finished day 289 of nonstop Duolingo. I don't know why, but I'm tormented if I don't go and do my little Duolingo lesson.
Yeah, it is really, really like beyond belief how you feel like I got to do my Duolingo today, otherwise I'll lose my streak. Big deal.
Right. It means nothing. It means nothing, but you go and do it. And so I'm bringing this up only to say that if you can find an on-demand training platform that offers some element of gamification, so some way of turning it into something that's fun, keeping track of the days that someone's done it, etc., this would really be a great, great thing for you to do. LearnDash has some of those things. Groove hasn't mentioned that yet. And so, so there's that. Okay, so I want to finish this in the 8 minutes we have left for today. Yeah, lots of platforms. Don't begin to think for one moment that they're all created equally. They are not. You need to go into it clearly in your mind. What is it that I want my courses to be like? How serious are they? Is it important to me that people finish the courses once they start them? How am I going to keep them engaged? See, if you've got something like LearnDash where it's going to trickle out the learning, I'm sure these are also true for Udemy and all that. If you're enrolled in a course and you haven't done something recently, it knows, and it may very well automatically send you a reminder email to do things like that. And so this on-demand training platform is far more robust than on the surface it may seem like it needs to be. Okay. Now, the pricing of that, you decide whatever you want your prices to be. We have seen courses online, say it's just a one video little course, and say an hour-long kind of a thing. We've seen those for $5. We've seen those for $200. When it comes to longer programs, we've seen those for under $100 into the thousands of dollars. So there seems to be no actual price that works for everybody. I think it's going to go back to your audience, to what the content, the quality of the content, and what value the content is going to end up bringing them later on down the road. We'll also talk about how sometimes you want to include content in your tiers. And you want to include on-demand training in your tiers, and other times where you want the on-demand training to be an add-on. So maybe you give them a discount because they're at a particular tier, but it's another product you're selling them as opposed to something that you're simply including with whatever their monthly membership fee happens to be. Okay, so now we got to talk about the downside. The downside is that it is a complex beast to choose the right one. But perhaps the biggest downside is that regardless of what any of their marketing materials will tell you, you must never underestimate the amount of time and energy it takes to create an online course. Anyone done it who can unmute and chime in and let them know I'm telling? It takes time. Patty?
Yes. So this is Patty Block, and I went through a 15-week course to learn how to build online courses because I had done that in the past and then I couldn't sell them. And so that was a really good experience for me. So I've spent 15 weeks learning how to do this and piloting 2 different programs, which was very successful, but the amount of time is almost shocking. Mm-hmm. And the amount of thought and energy you have to put into it.
Yep. You really do have to figure out what's the full curriculum going to look like, and then how are you going to map it out into digestible moments, and what form is that going to take? And now you got to produce the videos and edit the videos, and are you going to do any quizzes, and on and on. So just don't underestimate the amount of time it takes to do a quality program. Pamela, you feel free, you're unmuted. Go ahead and share what you
Okay, I just had a question for Patty. So it evidently was profitable, but was it fun?
Yes.
Okay.
So part of it was fun and part of it was super energizing, mm-hmm. and it was exhausting.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I just, I'm in a place in my life where if it's not fun, I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
But if
yeah,
it's fun and it'll make money for me, I'm all
yeah,
gung ho.
exactly.
I don't mind putting in some energy. I have to figure out how much I have and
Yeah,
how much
yeah.
it's going to take. But
Well,
other than that,
and for me, I just don't want people going like, "Oh, I'm so excited about online training." You need to go in with your eyes wide open, and and there is a
right.
learning curve that's involved, of course, and then there's just sheer time. I mean, how many people in our line of work have any background whatsoever in even course design? Forget doing it online, just putting together a regular course. You know, it's a skill set. Pardon me, that people may not have or haven't exercised for a good long while. And I think the other downside then is that because of the amount of time it takes, it can't be an income generator for you very quickly. So Patty has already shared 15 weeks of training. It did sound like during that training, she was actually creating a program. So by the end of it, pilots were already happening or had already begun. Um, and that's really ideal, but that's 15 weeks that you've now invested in something without expecting to get much. Now her pilots were paid pilots, and Patty, it's up to you. Do you want to share what the results of your pilots were?
And also what the cost of the training was.
So this is Patty again. What I earned from the 2 pilots was over $15,000 and have set myself up to charge double and sometimes triple for the final courses. So one of them was priced at $997, one at $1,997. And what it cost me to do the 15-week program was $1,500. So I earned more. Everything I spent on a book coach, because I'm writing a book, on every expert that I hired, I covered those costs and made a profit by doing those pilots.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Do you want to share the course that you went through?
Sure. The company is called Mirasee, Mirasee. It's mirasee.com. And the owner is Danny Inney. And I've been super impressed. They have a series of coaches and you get assigned a coach. And it is an online course that teaches you how to develop online courses and then how to sell them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's called the Course Builder Masterclass.
Excellent. Excellent. So now I'll also share with you that Patty could focus entirely on her on-demand training, but that really isn't her flagship product. So because I think Patty is probably one of the best examples of someone I've been speaking with recently who's doing one of these blended models. It's part membership, it's part on-demand training. So do you want to share any of that, Patty, or you consider that proprietary?
Oh, no, I'm happy to share that. What I started to do was, in order to sell the online courses, you have to build a marketing machine, regardless of what platform you use,
Yep.
or if you choose not to use a learning management system. You have to build a marketing machine. And the more that I worked on that, the more deflated I felt, because I realized it wasn't aligning with me as a person and me as a company. And I've had my company since 2006 and always focused on private consulting. And I work with women business owners to help them grow and scale their companies. And because it's a boutique practice, I've always worked one-on-one with clients. Building that marketing machine, first of all, it's very expensive. Secondly, it's just not where I wanted to head. So my pilot participants kept asking me, how can we keep our group together? The content is valuable. We love that you're teaching us and coaching us, and we're applying all this in our businesses, but we want our group to stay together. How can we make that happen? So I came up with a concept that's called the Revenue Roundtable, designed for women business owners, pretty much 2 to 10 years in business, that own service companies. And that now once they become a member, they have discounts on the online programs. And I've now developed, or I'm in the process of developing, I'll have a total of 22 programs. And they'll have discounts on all of those. And my goal is to build multiple revenue roundtables. And so I'm in the process of doing that. And so far I've sold about 5 or 6 of the 15 seats in this table. And it's a monthly membership fee. And to your point, T, I'm not using a membership platform because there's only one level.
Right.
You're either a member or you're not.
Yep. And here's the thing is so Patty kind of has a hybrid model to the whole thing. And part of our discussion was, is there some part of her training that she wanted to include with the people becoming a member of the roundtable, or is it going to be something that is an add-on, or is it going to be a little bit of both? But what I want to bring to everyone's attention is that why Patty's model is very strong is she recognizes that the membership element of things has to be something that provides both content and community. So the content is what gets someone started. The community is what gets people to stick with it. And yeah, there's going to be attrition, that's life is life, but that's what the real point of it is. And the other thing that I was chatting with Patty about, and I don't mean to be speaking out of turn if I am, but I said, Patty, you got to still make sure that the spotlight is placed on you, because you just don't want to create a community and people go like, well, this community is this great thing, but how does it equate with Patty? So this is why I said, so you need to have the this community element, but you need to make sure that you are keeping yourself central, vital to whatever that community happens to be. Patty, comments on that?
Yes, that was super helpful. You used a word that I thought was interesting. You said you need to keep the membership pure. And then you and I talked about what that meant. And that was very helpful for me because I did see a merging of the online programs and the roundtable. And that could create confusion and people who might feel they weren't being treated fairly. So what I've now done is I'm redesigning my website with 3 solutions: private consulting, revenue roundtable, and programs. And again, my revenue roundtable members will have discounts on the programs, but none of those programs are included and none are free.
Great. Are you thinking that any of them will be a prerequisite for participation in the roundtable?
Yes, one of them, the first pilot that I did is called value-driven pricing. And the concept is about recognizing your real value and then building a pricing model. And I show them how to do that and then communicating that. So, because every woman I've ever met is undervaluing themselves and underpricing. So they're required to take that and I give them a discount on it, but I didn't include it. In future roundtables, I may include it when I charge a higher membership fee.
Yep. Well, and part of that for everyone's benefit is that some of the people that are involved in her pilot are people who she's been working with. And so they may already have been, what do we say, at least informed of a lot of the things you cover in the course. So yeah, correct me if I'm remembering things wrong, but you kind of didn't want to make them take it twice because it felt like a review for them? Or?
Yes. And what I ended up doing was those are what I call my affinity members. Those are people who participated in the pilot for value-driven pricing. And I am giving them, they're treated as if they've already paid because they have.
Right.
So they get free access to the final version of value-driven pricing and everybody gets lifetime access. So they are required, everyone in the roundtable is required to have that content. And we will be talking about it. Part of that is so we have a common language as I'm coaching them in the revenue roundtable.
Excellent. Well, I'm so glad you were on the call because I think it's important for people to not only know that someone is out there actively doing this and building this, but that you're doing it at a rather high level. So, this isn't the $5, $10 membership kind of thing for everyone's benefit. So her roundtable participation fee involves more digits than that. So,
Right, and I don't mind sharing that either. For my charter members, it's $500 a month. And when I have more tables established, it's probably going to be $1,000 per person per month.
Yep. And that's the great thing is that when you've targeted a clientele who would look at that investment and go, well, that's manageable. That's great. That's who your audience really is. I was surprised as I was watching one video yesterday about this person who was creating membership organizations specifically around online. I think they were just calling them like mastermind or something like that. And he was using an example of Tony Robbins. Apparently Tony Robbins has a very long standing mastermind group. It's $5,000 a month. Well, I mean, I'm sure Tony's stuff is fine, but I can't believe that our stuff isn't just as good. Why is he getting $5,000? Because he's targeting a population that is in the position to pay that.
You need to learn to walk on coals.
Yeah, that's always been my problem. Instead, I'm running around in a what do we call this? A candy cane caftan and a Santa hat. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, we're over our time for today. But did anyone have any other comments? Edie, you're unmuted. Feel free to chime in.
Oh, I didn't know I was.
No, yeah, you feel free to.
It's just interesting. It's where I've got to go. So this has been very helpful.
Excellent. Okay, good.
Yeah, really good, fun meeting, and interesting, and just great to interact around this topic.
Excellent. Well, we have quite a bit more to cover. Obviously, this Thursday's Christmas Eve, so won't be having our class. So it'll be next week, Tuesday. We'll pick up where we've left off. So between now and then, everyone have a wonderful holiday. Make it as best as you can. And Linda has chatted over to everyone that Groove Pages link. So please make sure that you click on that and go and check it all out. And feel free to send any questions you have around that to us.
I also wanted to let everybody know that there is a free part to Groove.
Oh, yeah. So
that may be enough for what your goals would. But that link will take you to tons of information.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks, everybody. And like I said, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.